we have started a small fundraiser for the podcast. We want to bring you more content. We want to bring you better content. And to do that, we need to seriously upgrade our equipment. To this point, we've did all of our recordings with the most minimal of supplies. But with our ambition, we know we need some help. So if you go to our Facebook page, I've started a fundraiser. If you have $1, that'd be great. Even better, just like and share our page, share our podcast, get the word out there, and help us grow. Welcome to the 12 Bike Podcast, where we talk about all the ways you can get outdoors. Today's guest is Steven Singer. He created a Facebook page here in Colorado called Keeping Colorado Beautiful. Their mission statement is to remove graffiti from the beautiful landscape here in Colorado. At the time of recording, his organization was only 4 weeks old and already had close to 1,000 members. It's been a few months and they've doubled their size and have started gaining a lot of popularity in the area. With any luck, he'll continue to gain steam and clean more rocks and more graffiti in the area than any other organization that we've seen.
Hey, how about now?
I can hear you really good.
Oh, there we go. I got the volume turned on to where I can hear you now.
Excellent. Well, thanks for agreeing to talk to me on such short notice. I know it was kind of probably weird and out of the blue, right?
Yeah, getting a lot of that here recently.
Well, I mean, what you're doing is pretty cool. I'd imagine a lot of people want to know about it.
Well, hopefully. I suppose they do. That's kind of the point. I kind of want it to spread and take off.
Well, I want to talk about keeping Colorado beautiful, but first, I want to kind of get some background information on you, if that's all right.
Sure, ask away.
Are you a Colorado native?
Technically, no.
So, did you move here when you were really young then?
Yeah, I got here in the 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess you've been here long enough you can kind of grandfather in.
I tell people I'm from here and just leave
Well,
it at that.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably believe it. With me, it's kind of hard because I've got a really bad Southern accent.
I hear that. Where's that
from? Take a guess.
I was gonna guess Texas.
Woo! No, Southern Ohio.
Really?
Yep, it's pretty bad. I've heard Alabama, Tennessee, Virginia. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't get it. I don't know why I have such a bad accent, but
yeah, that's a pretty tough accent right there. Because I would have pegged you for further south than Ohio. That's for sure.
Yeah. I've had one person guess it, and that's because they were from Ohio. So they get it.
Right.
What's funny is you drive 2 hours. You drive 2 hours north, and nobody has an accent. It's really weird.
Oh, I believe it. I just recently moved back from like the Minnesota area, and I know that you get out once you're out there, there's no accent. Well, I mean, there's the northern accent, the hard O's and everything.
Don't you know? Yeah. So where did you move from? When you moved from the 8th grade.
My dad had just retired from the Navy, and we were coming out from Monterey, California.
Oh, okay. Question. You might be able to answer this. Why do so many people from California want to move to Colorado?
Ooh, that requires me to get political, which I am trying to avoid on as far as my page is concerned.
Okay, well, we're going to avoid it because I don't want it on the podcast either. So, enough said. I think I know what you're talking about. Coming from California, did you do a lot of outdoor stuff there?
So growing up, we spent a lot of time traveling and camping. Like whenever my dad had leave, we were pretty much sleeping in sleeping bags somewhere awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. When you think of California, you think of Los Angeles, Oakland, all those city environments. There's some stunning country when you get into some of the more remote places of California.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just right nearby Monterey, you've got Big Sur, the redwood forest. You know, you go down south, you got the sequoias. You go up in the northern California is gorgeous. I mean, there's so much gorgeous terrain throughout California. If it wasn't for the reasons that I think a lot of people are retreating there, I would live there.
It's a shame, but I've never been to the redwoods. That's on my to do list. I want to go out there and see those.
I highly recommend it. It's pretty breathtaking to be amongst trees that are just that immense.
Yeah, and looking at pictures of them, I really don't think it does it justice because don't they have some tunnels carved through some of those trees?
Oh yeah, down
Like
in
you can
the
drive through them?
Sequoia National Forest, or is it the Sequoia National Park or National Forest? But down there, yeah, those sequoias, those are you could build a city inside of some of them. Small city,
That
but a city
that
nonetheless.
that blows my mind. So once you moved from California to here, I assume you and your family kept up those outdoor traditions, right?
Oddly enough, we kind of let that slip. That there was there was a lot of focus placed elsewhere, and we went. We did a couple of camping trips here and there, but I mean, I hit my teens and became kind of a little shit. Pardon my language. I went through a phase that lasted way longer than it ever should have lasted.
Hey, I get it. I get it. So then you said you recently moved back from Minnesota.
Yep.
I know Minnesota's got a very big outdoor culture too. Were you in some of the more rural, wild parts, or were you close to the cities?
I was trapped in the Twin Cities area. Big
Ugh.
part of why I came home, because in order to do the outdoor stuff, it took a whole lot more time commuting to get to the really awesome places in Minnesota, which they have some really amazing, beautiful places, especially all the way up by the North Shore.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate about where I live. I live in Loveland, and I can be in the Rocky Mountains in 35 minutes.
I think I can be from where I'm at, I can be in the Rockies within 15 or 20.
Yep, and see, that's to me that was the biggest appeal to moving to where we did, just being able to access all that stuff,
Yep,
at the click of a finger.
absolutely.
So, in between your time of leaving and then coming back, once you got back here and started getting out and exploring a little bit, did you start noticing some degradation of some of the parks? I mean, how did keeping Colorado beautiful even come about?
Well, I would imagine that what you're talking about was taking place, like a slow erosion of my calm as I kept noticing more and more and more. The catalyst, I guess, for lack of a better term, was Father's Day. I took my dad in our Jeep Wrangler up Mount Herman Road, which is located down here in Monument, and it's a road that we, as a family, and I'm sure most of the community down in this area, have traveled constantly. And it's a it's a dirt road, gorgeous dirt road that goes up and links up into Rampart Range. And there's a part about, I want to say, 2/3 of the way to its connection to Rampart Range where you pass what's called Balance Rock. And for the roughly 20 years that I have lived in Colorado and gone up and down that, it's been it's been there. It's like it that's Balance Rock. You know the spot. It's this gorgeous rock, and it teeters right over the road, and it's always been pristine. Well, Father's Day, as my dad and I approached it in the Jeep, it was covered in spray paint, and it just kind of ticked me off. I took pictures, I posted about it that day, and I said in the post, I guess I'm going to go clean up graffiti next weekend, not realizing that 4 weeks later I'd be doing podcasts and trying to get a large movement going to take care of the rest of the state. But Yeah.
Hold on, wait. Father's Day this year?
This year.
That surprises me because, I mean, just looking at the Facebook page, it seems like you guys are gaining some steam fast.
Oh, yeah. Like way fast. I am way underprepared for the amount of steam that we have been building. Like, this is all new to me. Yeah, it's a little overwhelming because I average 50 to 60 hour work weeks. So, I mean, I'm trying to juggle this plus my work plus my actual recreational like me time. It's a lot.
Wow. So you see this rock that's got graffiti all over it. Was it any kind of graffiti in particular, or was it just someone that just spray painted the rock?
It was so if you're familiar with the page, it would be the first project that I posted. And what was on it? Somebody spray painted in silver paint, like Corey, I will always love you.
Duh.
And on the back side, it said in red paint, it was saying something like, such and such got high here. Just stupid stuff, like completely useless drivel. So over the course of the week following Father's Day, I kind of got out on Google and did a little research. And I'll admit that first removal, I was not using the most eco-friendly solvents because I was still in my learning phase. But it went swimmingly, and I still didn't use like a whole lot of chemicals to get it off.
Yeah.
But following that, there were actually a couple questions. It was like a 99.9% positive reaction to the posts regarding that, with a couple of people that asked, and it made me think, that's a very valid point. And so I started doing research and I found eco-friendly solvents. So then the next one that I went up, oh, well, I guess backtrack. So anyway, yeah, I posted all that, and the reaction caused me to kind of think that maybe this was a thing that I should pursue a little bit, because I was almost immediately being asked like, hey, what about the graffiti here? Somebody tagged up this. And so I started kind of reaching out. I spoke with, apparently there were a lot of protest tags. I'll leave it at that in Red Rock. And so I talked to their howdy, Dad.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm doing the thing, just so you know.
Yeah, we're gonna make him famous.
I don't want to be.
Too late, partner.
All right. Yeah. So I spoke to the park rangers at Red Rocks, and they were squaring it all away. And so, like, I told the adventure group that I'm part of about that. And then I just decided, I'm going to make a page about this so that people can, people can post pictures and locations of graffiti on the page. And two, so that hopefully I can inspire and encourage other people to put together their own graffiti removal kits should they feel like they want to, and go out there and remove graffiti on their own, and do it in the right way. I mean, I'm learning as I go as well. And so that's the other part of it, is I want people to share like their learning experiences and whatnot, so that as a community, we can all grow and learn and get out there and reclaim the whole reason we all live here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That first one, did you do that all by yourself, the removal, or did people go with you for the first one?
Oh, I did that by myself.
How long did it take you to remove just that little bit? I mean, I say just a little bit, but
roughly 2 hours.
That's not bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all, which is another part of why, like, I went up there expecting to spend all damn day working on that, and when I was done, I was like, well, that went a lot easier than I anticipated.
So after that first one, and you had your learning curve and people were asking you some questions, where did your research take you to some like preferred methods for removing graffiti?
Well, the only real alteration to my current method was the solvent I was using. Beyond that, it's stayed largely the same as long as I'm able to get my truck nearby and provide a power source for my corded angle grinder. Otherwise, if I can't provide power source, then it's all got to be done by hand.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer, but with what you guys are doing. Hopefully, if you can get enough manpower to some of these places, that's not a big deal either.
No, like you're absolutely correct. So this last Saturday, we did the Guffey Gorge project, and that one was brought to my attention by one of the group members, Matt. Like day 1 or 2 of the groups being created, he brought that one to my attention, and we kind of coordinated and planned getting out there. And so we got out there this last Saturday. We had myself, him, Chris, and Josh and Tara all went out there, and we were able to knock out a lot in, I want to say, probably about 3 or 4 hours of scrubbing and whatnot. And ultimately, the quantity of graffiti we were able to remove in that 3 to 4 hours with 4 people and hand brushes was equal to twice as much as the 2 projects I've done by myself so far. So getting the manpower out there definitely makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And the other thing I think you've highlighted, you talked about it on one of the Facebook posts, people went out and just tried to grind off the graffiti.
Yeah, I discovered that yesterday. I took my dad up Old Stage Road down here in Colorado Springs and came across that tag that clearly somebody used an actual grinding wheel to remove the paint and scarred up the stone itself.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about what you guys are doing. You're trying to maintain the way the rock or whatever the graffiti's on in the most natural state you can.
Yep. Yes, that we want to minimize the damage. Like I'd rather a little bit of the paint be sitting there in some of the nooks and crannies than over damage the rock to get it out.
And in your conversations with those the CPW officials at Red Rock, do they have any kind of money set aside for that kind of stuff, like park up, keep, and
So
graffiti removal?
it sounds like, as far as city and county parks are concerned, they do. They actually do have the manpower and the funds set aside for handling those situations. Like the situation at Red Rocks was handled, I think, within a week or 2. They had it all squared away.
That's good. I didn't know that wasn't a problem back in Ohio because we didn't have the same landscape that's here. That and people just didn't care.
Yeah.
That was the other problem. Do you have any opinions as to whether or not the recent COVID stuff has brought an uptick in vandalism like that?
I could see how that could play a little bit of a factor. Although it's always been going on. As long as I've lived here, there's always been people that, I generally suspect it's the youngsters that are getting drunk or high while they're up in the mountains and they've got spray paint with them and they feel like they want to destroy something beautiful because that's what teens and whatnot do. No offense to any teens listening. I know there's a lot of good ones out there, but
I can only speak for myself. Whenever I was a teenager, the last thing I wanted to do was hike a bunch of spray paint up into the mountains or the hills somewhere and spray paint stuff. To me, it just seems so strange. The mental state you'd have to be in to go, okay, I'm going to load up my backpack with spray paint. We're going to walk a mile or however far, and we're going to spray up this rock and then walk back. That just seems so crazy to me.
It is a little crazy, but I mean, I can speak from my experience as a teen and a young, immature adult. I never did the vandalization, but I mean, I was no saint. I tell you that much.
Don't get me wrong. Our vice wasn't paint; it was fire. We would drive around the middle of the night, make them a lot of cocktails, and set these little back roads on fire. And we just thought it was great. It's a wonder we didn't die or get arrested.
Right. Yeah, mine was. I had a strong drug and alcohol problem coupled with all the crime that generally comes along with that.
But here you are. You've come out on the other side with that experience in mind, and now you're doing what you're doing, and you're making a difference.
Yep. And I use my past gives me a little bit of a perspective and an understanding for what I assume are people with a similar maturity state to what I had, that just happen to, their angst and whatnot goes in a different direction. I'm not justifying what they're saying or justifying what they're doing or excusing what they're doing, but I can understand it because I too was a little POS at one point in my life.
But you know what? Like with a group like what you've started, you've got a real opportunity to do community outreach and maybe get in touch with some of those kids that are at risk or on the borderline of being, little punks that spray paint stuff, and take them out and show them what they're doing to their area.
Yeah, and I'm always open to that. I mean, you got to catch them first.
That's true. Well, and the other thing that's so weird about your page and your group, it's only 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's 4 weeks old. If it's even 4 weeks yet.
So, I mean, this thing is, I don't even know if you can call it infancy yet. I mean, you've just kind of created this thing.
Oh yeah, it's still in the womb.
Yeah, and I mean, when you first started it, did you imagine it taking off like that?
No, I'll be completely honest. When I first made it, I swear I thought somebody was going to be like, "Oh, hey, somebody else already has something like this. Here, check this group out," and I just transfer over to another group that's already been going for a while, and that's not what happened.
So, to your knowledge, there's not really another group or organization that does this?
Not focusing on the graffiti. I know there is a Keep Colorado Beautiful that does a lot of, going out and picking up trash and a lot of similar stuff to what my page is doing, but without the focus on the graffiti.
That's interesting to me because I know everybody out here is really critical on the leaving trash out in the parks.
Yep.
I'm critical of it. Every time I go out on a hike, I bring out garbage with me.
Yep.
So it kind of shocks me a little bit that no one would be out there advertising, the graffiti removal.
Yeah, the BLM guy I spoke with was also like, it was kind of a shock to him. I mean, he was stoked and like really enthusiastic about the idea of me organizing people to come out there and clean up graffiti. They don't have anybody doing that out there or in the national forest. I can't get a hold of the national forest people. I'm kind of at a point where if it's on their land, then I look at it as I'll ask for forgiveness, since I can't apparently ask for permission.
Whenever you talk to the BLM people and the parks people, do they ask you any technical questions about what you're using or make you fill out any kind of forms?
Negative on the BLM. Yes, they asked, and I explained how I use, like, my technique is intended to be eco-friendly and yada yada yada, all the same stuff that I talk about on my site. I explained to them. No forms or anything, but he did send me an email that basically he said if I felt like I needed to, I could print it off, and if a ranger ever showed up, I could just show him that email, and it pretty much gives me and anybody else that is running with us free reign to remove graffiti as long as we're not being stupid about how we do it or leaving a bigger mess.
I was say causing more damage.
Yep.
With this little in the womb idea of yours, where do you kind of see it going in the short term, like the next 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, I have no idea, because this is so much bigger than I ever imagined it would be. When I first did it, my goal was, and it still is, for me to be like an ember that starts a fire, and I want my site to be so full of other people posting and sharing their success stories and what they've learned and so on and so forth, that I kind of fade away and disappear.
Oh, so you can just kind of create this little thing and then walk away and just let it kind of take off on its own.
That was what I originally hoped for, and kind of what I still hope for, because I'm not a people person, and so I don't necessarily view myself as somebody that should be in the spotlight, if that makes sense. Like,
I get that.
I'm okay with it temporarily or however long it takes. I'm okay with it. But I truly just want to see it take off and it to be about the movement. And I mean, that's why I took the picture that included me off the cover of the page. It's like, I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about people taking care of Colorado.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm sure there will be someone that'll take up the mantle of spokesperson or the face of that page. There's no shortage of people that want to do that. What you're doing, what you want to do, is the stuff that people are like, that sounds kind of hard. You know, spending hours out in the woods scrubbing in the 90-degree heat.
I love it though. I love that. I mean, I assure anybody listening, if you have any doubts, I assure you there is no better feeling than watching that paint wipe away off the rocks. Like, there's no better feeling than when you finish and that graffiti is gone off those rocks. That is the best feeling in the world. If you could stand back and go, that's what it's supposed to look like.
Oh, absolutely. And that's for any kind of monument or site, across the world.
Yep.
They were defaming like the petroglyphs down in the Colorado River canyons. There was one famous one on the upper part of the Colorado River where someone had went in there and spray painted it.
Oh my God.
Well, they found them because they keep records of who all goes down the Colorado River, and they caught them on the coming out of the takeout spot. So there are consequences to doing this stuff if you get caught.
Yep.
And I think people need just have a little bit of self-respect and just decency. Don't do those kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, I've taken enough of your time. I just wanted to kind of get a gist of what you guys were doing. Is there anything you'd like to kind of add to the end of this to let people know what they can do to help?
Well, currently I have a new fundraiser set up on the page to help cushion the cost of supplies and supplies and tools and equipment. So that's always one way to help. Another way to help is just being vigilant when you're out in nature. Like, if you spot some of that graffiti, snap a picture of it and kind of take some notes as to where you saw it, and please join our page and put that information on the page, because we can't be everywhere. We need all the adventurers and the hikers and the people that can't clean it, on their own, to provide us with the information so that we can get out there and do it. The site needs to be an archive where we can kind of track down where all these locations are and snuff them out when we find them.
And, for people that maybe want to be proactive and just go ahead and take care of some of this stuff while they're out and about, do you have a best practices or like a direction sheet about how to remove some of that stuff?
I'm actually tomorrow going to go and handle a couple of smaller tags on Old Stage Road, largely with the purpose in mind of recording an in-depth step-by-step. This will specifically apply to the Front Range granite that we have along this eastern slope. I imagine that techniques will have to be altered here and there depending on the type of stone a person will be working on. But
I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, like, currently my technique kind of boils down to, I take my angle grinder with a wire brush and I scuff up the paint itself. Like, I don't grind hard on it. I just scuff the paint because I want to kind of open up the surface of the paint. And then I spray my eco-friendly solvent on there and really get it on there and work it in. And then I step back and give it about 5-10 minutes. And while that's going on, I kind of set up all the next steps. Once that's done, sitting for 5 or 10 minutes, I take that angle grinder with the wire brush again and go over the whole thing. And at this point, when I finish angle grinding the second time, it usually looks like I've made it worse. And then comes my favorite part. I put water into a 5-gallon bucket and grab a giant sponge and go over there and start wiping it down with the sponge. And as you wipe it down, you see that you've actually knocked it all loose and it's coming off and it's just washing right away. And so I work through all that, then spot treat with more solvent wherever necessary, and hit with the angle grinder again or brush, and basically rinse and repeat until I've got the vast majority of, basically up until I've hit a point where I feel like if I keep going, I'm going to start damaging rock. And usually by that time, it looks pretty good.
It's not rocket science. It's just elbow grease and time.
And patience and not getting too stubborn, like the incident with the grinder that I took pictures of up there. I feel like somebody went out there with good intentions and they started, and because they started, I imagine they stubbornly just pressed on through, like, I'm already this far, I'm going to get rid of the whole thing. And what I would ask of people is if you're going to go out there and try a new technique or something, be very conscious of the damage you're doing to the rock as you're going. And if you see that you're damaging the rock, just stop, reset, try to figure out switch gears, find a different technique, go home, do some research, and then plan another day to go back out and attack it again. Because if you damage the rock deeper than that graffiti was there, that's going to be there long after humans go extinct. Like the next sentient species that evolves will be looking at those as ancient hieroglyphs of the ancient ones and think, what could this have meant?
What is I Heart Carry?
Yeah, their History Channel will have a guy looking at that specific scar on the rock going, aliens.
Oh, shoot. I guess one other little piece of advice I would have, if you're going to go out and try to do this on your own, I used to work at a building supply store that dealt in masonry and masonry restoration. There are no shortage of contractors out there that probably handle situations similar to this all the time.
Yep.
Reach out to people like that maybe have some experience in removing graffiti.
Absolutely.
They're more than happy to share some of their wisdom.
100% agree on that one. Yeah, always reach out. Be willing to accept advice and learn something. Be open-minded.
Steven, thanks for sitting down and talking to me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it too. Helps to get the word out and hopefully see this thing grow even bigger than it already has.
Hopefully I can do my little part, and if I'm out and about, I'll try to remove some graffiti for you.
Outstanding. And like I said, if you don't have time to do that, snap a picture, throw it up on the page with the location.
That's great. Hopefully, I'm very anxious to see this network grow. I'm going to keep an eye on your page.
Right on. Thank you.
All right, see you, Steven.
See ya.
I'd like to thank Steven for taking the time to speak with me. I'm very excited about his organization. He's doing great things. It's always nice to see somebody being proactive and keeping the areas they love clean. If you'd like to follow 12 Ike, follow us on Facebook at 12 Ike, our Instagram page, 12 Ike Challenge, and we also have a YouTube channel that we're working on. It's in its infancy, but it's getting there.